Good morning to all. In today's class, we will discuss daemon threads and thread group. Okay. So with these two topics, we can complete multi-threading. After that, I will explain static keyword. Now, daemon threads. Threads are of two types: user-defined threads and daemon threads. So daemon threads are the predefined threads which are always running in the background. Okay, user defined threads we are writing on our own. No, we can write any number of user defined threads by taking any class which extends either thread class or which implements runnable interface. So by using this concept, we can write our user defined threads. Already we have done so many programs on multi-threading. Okay, now these are the last two topics: daemon threads and what is the other one? Thread group. Okay, so daemon threads easy only, nothing is there here. So daemon thread in Java is a service provider thread that provides services to the user thread, that is non-daemon threads. Okay, user defined threads are called non-daemon threads. Okay, next, its life depends on the mercy of the user threads. That is, when all the user thread dies, JVM terminates this thread automatically. No need to study all these actually. Actually, the daemon threads are, garbage collector now. Okay, garbage collector is the daemon thread. Best example is garbage collector. So already in garbage collection, we studied garbage collector now. JVM invokes the garbage collector. Then garbage collector enters into the heap memory to destroy the useless objects. So what is that garbage collector? Okay, in between the user, okay, user can't invoke the garbage collector now. Only JVM has to invoke the garbage collector. But user can or programmer can make or can send a request to JVM to invoke garbage collector. Only JVM will invoke the garbage collector. Then garbage collector goes into the heap memory to destroy the useless objects. Already explained garbage collection in depth. There we have discussed about this garbage collector. So what is this garbage collector is? It is a daemon thread which is running automatically in the background. Okay, that is best example is garbage collector is the daemon thread which is running in the background. Okay, similarly we have so many daemon threads are there, finalizer like that. Okay, next we will see one. First we will see the methods for daemon threads. Okay, the java.lang.thread class provides two methods for Java daemon threads. So inside the thread class is there in which package? Java.lang package. So thread is a predefined class which is having so many methods. What are the methods which are there in the predefined class thread? Till now we have seen thread class methods are start. Okay, start method of the thread class is very, very important to register the new thread with the thread scheduler. So start method of the thread class is the heart of the multi-threading programs. So start method, tell me some methods of thread class. Start method, run method, yield method, join method, then interrupt method, okay, sleep method. Okay, like that we know the methods of thread class. Like that, what are the methods of the object class which are used in multi-threading? Last class I explained inter-thread communication. So the three methods which are important to explain inter-thread communication in Java is, what are the three methods? Wait, notify, notify all. See, these three methods are not there in the thread class. Understand this point. So wait, notify and notify all. These three methods are there in the object class. So java.lang.object. Okay, in place of thread, write object. So java.lang.object class contains wait method, notify method, and notify all methods which are used in multi-threading, that too which are used in particularly in inter-thread communication in multi-threading programs. Okay, so here in multi-threading we are using two predefined classes. They are thread class and another one is object class. Only these are the two predefined classes we are using to write multi-threading programs, and one more is which interface we are using to write the multi-threaded programs. Runnable. So runnable interface is also there in which package? Java.lang package. Remember, in multi-threading we are using two predefined classes and one predefined interface. So what are the two predefined classes? Java.lang.thread and Java.lang.object. Next, Java.lang.runnable interface we are using. So only using two predefined classes, that is thread and object classes, and using the predefined interface runnable, we are writing the multi-threaded programs. And these two predefined classes and the predefined interface runnable are available in Java.lang package. You know, Java.lang is the default package. That's why when you write the multi-threaded programs, no need to import any other package. Okay, only directly you can start writing your multi-threaded programs. Why? Because in any multi-threaded program, we are using only two predefined classes, thread and object, and predefined interface runnable. And all these three are there in Java.lang package. And you know, Java.lang is the default package. Whether you import or not, it is available for each and every program in Java. That is, import java.lang.star. That is the first statement of each and every program in Java. That's why to write the multi-threaded programs, no need to import any other package. Okay, using this default package only, we can write the multi-threaded programs, because in multi-threaded programs we are using two predefined classes, thread and object, and one predefined interface runnable. All these three are there in the default package Java.lang. That's why no need to import any other package separately when you write the programs on multi-threading. Okay. Now coming to the daemon threads. So here we have two methods. These two methods are there in which class? Thread class. These two methods are related to daemon threads. Okay. Now what are the two methods? Public void set daemon boolean status. We can make our user defined thread as daemon thread by using this status as true. Boolean means it can take only true or false, no? Okay, by taking this status as true, we can make our user defined thread as daemon thread. Okay, next, what is the other method? Public boolean is daemon. So the return type of is boolean function is boolean. Is not is boolean, is daemon. So the return type of is daemon function is boolean. Means it will give you the output as daemon or non-daemon. Okay, means true or false. Suppose if that thread is daemon, it will give you true. If that thread is non-daemon, it will give you false. So these are the two methods which are related to daemon threads. First one is set daemon. Boolean status means we can make our user defined thread as daemon thread using set daemon true. Next, is daemon means it will give you the output as true or false. If the thread is daemon thread, it is giving you true. If the thread is non-daemon thread, it will give you false. So these are the two methods. So using two methods, we can write one simple program on daemon threads. So daemon thread demonstration. Class myThread extends thread. It is behaving like a thread. Okay. So this class is behaving like a thread. Why? Because already explained how do we write user defined thread is either by using extends thread class or by implementing runnable interface. Okay. So class myThread extends thread means it is behaving like a thread. So inside this thread, I have to write overriding run method. Inside the overriding run method, I will write the functionality of this thread. Okay. Now we will start writing the overriding run method. So public void run method. Why it is called overriding run method? This run method is available in thread class with null implementation, and this is an abstract method in runnable interface. Okay, this run method is an abstract method in runnable interface, and this run method is having null implementation in the predefined class thread. That's why we must override the run method of the thread class or run method of the runnable interface. That's why always we must write the overriding run method. Inside the overriding run method, we will write the functionality of this thread. So these are the important points to create a new thread. Okay. Now inside the overriding run method functionality using if and else. So if thread dot current thread means here which one is the current thread? This thread is the current thread, because inside this thread I have written. Suppose if you inside the main thread means inside the main method, if you write thread dot current thread, in that case main is the current thread. But here inside this thread I am writing current thread dot current thread, means it is giving the current thread as this thread. Okay, thread dot current thread dot is daemon. Is daemon will give you either true or false. No. Okay, now it is checking for a daemon thread. If your thread is daemon thread, it will give you true. If your thread is non-daemon thread, it will give you false. Okay, I will explain this later. First try to understand. If thread dot current thread dot is daemon, system dot out dot println daemon thread work. Okay, daemon thread works. Next else. Else means, okay, else means if it is not true. Is daemon true means if true, this will be executed. Else means false. System dot out dot println user thread work. So this is the functionality of this thread. Okay, next we will see the flow later. First try to understand the program. Next, public class daemon thread example. So this is the class name. Okay, class is a keyword, class name. You can write any class name. Next, public static void main string args. So inside the main method, now main thread. This is main thread. So here inside the main method, I am creating 3 threads. Now do we create 3 threads? By creating separate objects. Okay. So for which class is behaving thread? My thread class is behaving like thread because it extends thread class. Okay. So for my thread class, I am creating 3 objects, means we are creating 3 threads. So with my thread T1 is equal to new my thread T2 is equal to new my thread T3 is equal to new my thread. Okay. So we have created 3 threads. After that, what I am doing? T1 dot set daemon of true. Okay, means what I am doing? T1 dot set daemon of true means T1 is actually user defined thread. No, I am making this user defined thread as daemon thread by writing this statement. That is T1 dot set daemon of true. Means now T1 is acting as daemon thread. Previously with this statement T1 is the user defined thread, but after execution of this statement T1 thread is daemon thread. Okay, but when you want to set or when you want to make your user defined thread as the daemon thread, means we have to write this statement. No, but this statement must be written before start method, before invoking start method on that thread. Okay. So before writing T1 dot start, you should write this statement. Otherwise, you will get runtime exception. That is the rule for this statement. Okay. Next, after making the first thread as daemon thread, what I will do? T1 dot start. Okay. Don't write this statement after T1 dot start. If you write this statement after T1 dot start, you will get runtime exception. Okay. Next, after setting the first thread as daemon thread, I will invoke T1 dot start. T1 dot start means our thread is registered with the thread scheduler. Means first thread is registered with the thread scheduler. After that, second thread is registered with the thread scheduler using T2 dot start. Next, using T3 dot start, our thread is registered with the thread scheduler. So how many threads are registered with the thread scheduler? With these 3 statements, 4 threads are registered with the thread scheduler means 4 threads are in the waiting queue. Okay, waiting for the CPU. Next here, what are the 4 threads? Already you know main is always 1 thread. So main is 1 thread and this is 1 thread, second thread, third thread, fourth thread. So here we have in this program we have 4 threads. That's why it is called a multi-threaded programs. So here how do we create multiple threads is there are 2 ways to create multiple threads. So I will explain. Write only one class means this is 1 thread now. See how do we create multiple threads? There are 2 ways. First way I will explain first. So how do I create multiple threads with this program is, here I have taken only 1 class which is behaving thread. Means this is 1 class which is behaving thread now. So I have taken only 1 class. Remember here, I have taken only 1 class, but for that class I am creating 3 objects, T1, T2, T3, and with those 3 objects I am invoking start method of the thread class. Means here one class and 3 objects creation. Okay, here 1 class and I am creating 3 objects for the same class. So this is also one way of writing multiple threads. So here how many threads? 3 threads in addition to the main thread. Whenever you write T1 dot start, always that is a new thread which is registered with the thread scheduler. Okay, in addition to the main method we have 3 threads. So here in the first way of creating multiple threads, what I am doing is I am taking only 1 class which behaves like a thread by taking extends thread. For the same class or for this class, I am creating multiple objects. So when you create multiple objects for the same class, means it is also nothing but creation of multiple threads. Because we are writing T1 dot start, T2 dot start, T3 dot start. No? So like that here in this program, we are creating multiple threads with this first way. This is first way of creating multiple threads. What is the another way of creating multiple threads is, instead of writing 1 class and creating multiple objects for the same class, what I will do is, in the second way, I will create multiple classes. Okay, how do I create multiple classes which behave like threads? So class my thread 1 extends thread. So this is 1 class. Next in the same way, class my thread 2 extends thread. This is another thread. Next class my thread 3 implements runnable. We can use either extends thread or implements runnable. So class my thread 3 implements runnable. So how many threads I have created? Each class represents 1 thread. No. That's why class my thread 1 extends thread. This is 1 thread. And second thread is class my thread 2 extends thread. That is second thread. And third thread is class my thread 3 implements runnable. That is third thread. So here we have created 3 classes to represent 3 threads. After that, what I will do is, while creating objects, I will create objects like this. My thread 1, T1 is equal to new my thread 1. Next, my thread 2, T2 is equal to new my thread 2. Next, my thread 3, T3 is equal to new my thread 3. Like that, I will create the multiple threads. This is the second way of creating multiple threads. This is first way of creating multiple threads. Both are correct. Okay, in the first way, I am taking only 1 class, okay, which acts like thread. For that class, I am creating, for the same class, my thread, I am creating multiple objects and I am invoking start method on 3 objects. Means 3 threads are there. In the same way, okay, what is the other way? In place of taking only 1 class and creating multiple objects for the same class, I will take different classes and I will create 1 object for each class. Okay, so when you write for 3 classes, my thread 1, T1 is equal to new my thread 1, my thread 2, T2 is equal to new my thread 2, my thread 3, T3 is equal to new my thread 3. Here I have 3 classes. For each class, I am creating only 1 object. After that, I will invoke start method on the 3 objects. That is T1 dot start, T2 dot start, T3 dot start. So these are the 2 different ways to create multiple threads. when you want to write program on multi-threading, you can use either one class, okay, which behaves like thread, and create multiple objects for the same class. That is the first way. Second is create multiple classes, okay, by which behave like threads. After that, create one object for each class. Then this is also to create multiple threads. Okay, these are the only two ways to create threads or to create multiple threads in multi-threaded programs. Okay. Now here we will see this flow first. So here this is the class name inside the main method. So I already explained now. So now here in this program we have 4 threads. Main is one thread, T1, T2, T3. Here we are having 4 threads. Now we will see when these 4 threads are running parallelly, simultaneously, then what will happen? See, here we have 4 threads, but I have set only the first thread as daemon thread. Means main thread is non-daemon thread, and T2 thread is non-daemon thread, and T3 thread is non-daemon thread. So when here how many threads are there in the waiting queue? 4 threads. Main, T1, T2, T3. But here out of these 4 threads, only T1 is set as daemon thread, and remaining 3 threads, that is main, T2 and T3 are the non-daemon threads. Okay, when these 4 threads are in the waiting queue, okay, which thread is given the CPU by the thread scheduler, nobody knows. And once if the thread scheduler allocates the CPU for one thread, but the thread cannot complete the entire execution of that thread functionality. In between, again, the second thread enters, the second thread is assigned the CPU by the thread scheduler. That's why when in multi-threading programs, so you can't expect the output. Okay. So here, suppose if the first thread is, this is one thread, no? So inside the overriding run method, thread dot current thread dot is daemon thread, no? Suppose if it is, suppose let us assume that our T1 thread is executing. T1 means already I have set T1 as daemon, no? Suppose if T1 thread is executing this run method, then what will be the output? If or else? If. So if T1 thread is executing this overriding run method, then you will get the output as daemon thread. Daemon thread works. Okay. Next, suppose let us assume that T2 thread, the thread T2 is executing the run method. In that case, you will get else spot, that is user thread work. Suppose T3 is executing this run method, again else spot, that is user thread work. Only when T1 is executing this run method, then only this if part will be executed. Whereas for the remaining threads, because they are non-daemon threads, that's why else spot. Non-daemon means user defined or user thread. Okay. Only for the first thread, that is for T1, only if part is executed. For the remaining threads, else part will be executed. Why for the first thread this if part will be executed is because of this statement. We have T1 dot set daemon of true. Means we are setting the first thread as the daemon thread using this statement. That's why only when this first thread T1 dot start, no, when the first thread is executing that overriding run method, then only if part is executed and the output is what is the output? Daemon thread works. Whereas for the remaining threads, only else part will be executed, that is user thread work. Unless you set the thread as daemon thread using set daemon of true, always the threads are user threads only. Okay. So this is the program on, you can execute this program. This is the program on daemon threads. Next, last concept, thread group. So what is thread group means? Till now we have created multiple threads. No, already I explained how to create multiple threads. So there are 2 ways to create multiple threads. What are the 2 ways? Again, I am repeating very important concept. By taking one class and creating different objects for the same class, or by creating multiple classes which behave like threads and create one object for each class. So in these two ways, we can say multiple threads are created. So what is thread group? Means we are grouping the multiple threads. That is nothing but thread group. Okay, like your sections. We are forming the sections now. Like that section means one group only, no? Okay, in your section, let us take 70 students are there. Like that, take one thread group. Your section is E section, no? ECE E section. Like that, give one name to the thread group, ECE. In that, each and every student is one thread. So thread group name is ECE E section, and under that thread group, we are adding 70 threads to this thread group. Okay, so thread group is nothing but grouping of threads. Okay, you know how to create threads. After creating the threads, we can group the threads. We can group some threads in one group and some threads in another group and some threads in another group. Like that, your sections only. All are ECE students only, no? Means all the ECE students are threads only. But how do we form groups or how do we form sections with all the ECE students? 1 to 60 section A, next 61 to something section B, like that, no? Like that, here also let us assume that here 300 threads are there. So okay, I am placing first 1 to 60 threads in the first thread group. Let us take the thread group name as ECE A. Same situation here also. Okay, next say take the 60 to 120 those threads. Okay, put in the group thread group ECE B. Okay, like that I can create that thread group first. After that I can give the name to the thread group, like section name. So after giving the name to the thread group, I can add some threads to that particular thread group. Same concept like your sections only. Now, how do we form groups? Okay, how do we form thread groups? I will explain now. So thread group provided a convenient way that groups multiple threads in a single object. Okay, now here all these are not necessary. See, a thread group represents a set of threads. Set of threads means some threads are assigned to one thread group and some more threads are assigned to another thread group, like that. Next, a thread, this is also important. A thread group can also include the other thread group. Inside one thread group, again we can include another thread group. That is also possible. Okay. Next, the thread group creates a tree. Here these are not necessary. So important points are a thread group represents a set of threads. Okay, this is the first point. After that, inside one thread group, we, in addition to the threads, we can add thread groups also. So a thread group can also include the other thread groups. Okay, thread group or next. First, the thread group is a predefined class. Okay, here thread group is a predefined class. Like thread is a predefined class, no? You know predefined class thread and you know the constructors of the predefined class thread. Already I explained the constructors of the predefined class thread. Like that, thread group is also a predefined class which is there in the java.lang package, and there are two constructors for thread group class. Already explained, for predefined classes we must remember the predefined constructors only. For predefined classes we can't use your own constructors. That's why go to API and search for the particular predefined class, and in that predefined class see the predefined constructors and see the purpose of each predefined constructor of that particular class, and based on your requirement which constructor is used or useful for your requirement, you have to take that constructor to create the object of this predefined class. You can't take your own constructors. Already explained while explaining the thread class, I have given the list of thread class constructors. You have to use only those constructors to create the thread class object. Like that, thread group is another class. It is a predefined class. That's why we should remember the predefined constructors of this predefined class. So what are the predefined constructors of the predefined class thread group? These are the two. First one is thread group of string name means how do we give the name to the thread group using this constructor. Okay, how do we give the name to your section? Like that, how do we give the name to the thread group? To add the threads to this thread group, first we should give the name to that thread group, because we can create any number of thread groups, not only one. No. When you want to create multiple thread groups, then each thread group must be named. No. Without giving the names to the thread groups, how do we identify which threads are in which thread group? Okay, that's why this constructor is very, very important. So to add your threads to thread group, first give the name to that thread group. So this constructor is used to give the name to the thread group. Okay, next. Second, already explained. No? Inside one thread group, you can add one more thread group also. First create one thread group, and while creating the second thread group, you can add that first thread group to the second thread group. In addition to adding the threads to the thread group, we can add thread group also to the thread group constructor. This is the second constructor. And the name. Okay. Now I will explain the program. See, class thread group. This is the class name. Implements runnable means it is behaving like a thread. Implements runnable or extends thread. Any class which extends thread or implements runnable means that is behaving like a thread. Next, public void run means this is the overriding run method. Okay, inside that what I am writing, thread dot current thread dot get name. Get name, set name already explained. No? Next, public void main method. Inside the same class I am writing the main method. And now I am creating, see here, follow carefully. Here thread group ex15, no, the name of the class. For this I am creating the object. What is the object? Thread group ex15, ph1 is equal to new thread group ex15. Okay. After that, what I am doing is I am giving the name for the thread group using the first constructor. What is the first constructor of thread group? So thread group of string name. This is the constructor. See, I am using the same constructor. Is it the constructor? Yes. Whenever you create an object, compulsory one constructor of that class must be invoked. No? So this part is nothing but constructor. I am using the first constructor of thread group. That is to give the name to the thread group also. Thread group tg is equal to, tg means reference variable. Thread group tg is equal to new thread group of group A, like ECEA. Okay, I am giving the first thread group name as group A. Okay, like that we can create any number of thread group tg1 is equal to new thread group group A. Next thread group tg2 is equal to new thread group of group B. Next thread group tg3 is equal to new thread group of group C. Like that I can create any number of thread groups with the names group A, group B, group C using the same syntax. That is using the first constructor of the thread group. Okay. Next, after forming the thread groups like group A, group B, group C, we have to add the threads to each and every group. No? Now I will explain how after forming a group, thread group with this name group A, I will explain how do we add the threads to group A. Okay, that is the next point. Now I want to add the threads to this thread group A. No? Now this is the procedure to add the threads to the thread group. Now we will explain. First you have to create threads. No? So this is the creation of thread. That's why for the thread class I am creating thread. I am creating the object. That's why thread is a predefined class. T1 is equal to new thread of. Here what is this? What is this here? Here go to the thread class constructors. Already I have given the list of thread class constructors. Inside that this is one of the thread class constructor. That is, it is taking 3 parameters. First one is thread group. This is thread constructor. See, thread of, it is taking thread group object. First parameter of this thread constructor is thread group object. Second one is, what is this th1 is, this is runnable. If you see there, it is runnable. In the thread class constructor, it is runnable. That's why I am sending the runnable class object to this one, th1. Why it is runnable means already explained. Class thread group ex15 implements runnable. Means this is the implementing class of this runnable interface. No? So here I am sending the implementing class object. So implementing class object is assigned to the runnable interface. Okay, here this is implementing class object, implementing class of runnable. Okay, implementing class object. So here if you see the thread constructor, in place of this tg you have thread group, comma, in place of th1 it is runnable. Runnable means in implementing class object is assigned to that runnable interface. That's why here I have taken th1. th1 is the implementing class object. Second one is runnable. Third one is which name you want, string name. String name means which name you want to give to your first thread. Each and every student is having some name, no? Like that each and every thread should have some name. That is name of the first thread is 1. So here this is, understand this one, this is thread class constructor. It is taking 3 parameters. First one is thread group object. Second one is implementing class object. Okay, and third one is name of the object. So here thread group, runnable, and here string name. So these are the 3 parameters. Check this constructor in the thread constructors, thread class constructors. Okay. Next we have created an object for thread class like this. Okay. After that t1 dot start means first thread is registered with the thread scheduler. Next in the same way tz th1. Okay, thread group, same thread group name I am taking. tz means group A. Okay. Next th1 means implementing class object. Then the second thread is t2. Means what is the meaning of this is this first thread, okay, with the name 1 is added to the thread group tz. With this the second thread with the name 2 is added to the thread group tz. Next here the third thread, okay, the third thread with the name 3 is added to the thread group tz. Means what does it mean? We have formed only one thread group with the name group A. So for that thread group I am adding 3 threads, that is 1, 2, 3 with the names 1, 2, 3. So here you can understand the thread group name is group A. So inside that thread group we have 3 threads with the names 1, 2, 3. That's it. Like that you can take group A by creating one more group, not group A, group B. So in the same way, this is here I have taken only one thread group A with the name A. For that thread group A, for that thread group with the name group A, I have added 3 threads 1, 2, 3. Like that you can extend this program, but by taking some more thread groups, and we can add some more threads to the other thread groups also. How do we take? How do we create one more thread with the group B? Thread group tz1 is equal to new thread group of double quotes group B. Again for that add 2 or 3 threads for that thread group. Like that we can create thread groups and we can add the threads to that thread groups. So this is the program on thread group. System.out.println thread group name plus tg.getName. tg.getName means what is your thread group name? Group A. So you'll get the output is group A. Next after that tg.list. So tg means here only one thread group in this program, that is group A. For the group A, for that thread group A, I have added 3 threads with the names 1, 2, 3. So using the list method of thread group, we can see the threads which are added to that particular group. Okay. So here we have added tg means what is the name of the thread group? Group A. No? So tg.list means it will list out the threads which are added to this thread group, that is group A. So here you will get the output as 1 because each and every thread is given names. No? That's why tg.list means the output is 1, 2, 3 because these are the 3 threads which are added to the thread group with the name group A. So here thread group name tg.getName means here you will get group A. Next tg.list means you will get the output as 1, 2, 3. So this is the program on thread group. So here I am sharing two materials on multi-threading. This material and one more material is there. In another material, one program is there on deadlocks. Please try to complete that deadlocks program also. So program on deadlocks also very, very important. You can easily understand on your own because already you studied operating system, no? Okay. So in operating system also, you studied deadlocks, no? Same concept here also. Okay, with this multi-threading is completed. Next, I will share this notes on static keyword also because static keyword is very, very important in Java. Okay. So last class I explained this keyword, no? Like that's the important keywords in Java are static, this, super. Super is also very, very important. So super we can use in inheritance only. This means in without inheritance also we use. Already I shared the material on this keyword. Now today I will share this material also. This is also very, very important. If you complete this material, you can understand the purpose of static keyword in Java. So here we can use static keyword in 4 ways. There are static variables, static methods, static blocks, and static import. So already explained static variables. So already explained one program on static variables, okay, in depth. Now complete static methods. Okay, I have not explained static methods. This is also very, very important. Similarly, static blocks, static import. Okay, if you go through these notes, you can easily understand on your own. No need to explain actually. So static variables program already I explained. This is one more program. If you are interested, you can do this program also. You know, for static variables, method is allocated in the, not method, memory is allocated in the method area. No? For instance variables, so in any class already explained, class consists of state part and behavior part. State part is nothing but variables. Again, there are two types of variables based on the position. So here this is called instance variable and this is called static variable. Why these are called instance and static variables are means static variables and instance variables must be placed inside the class and outside the block or constructor or method. Based on the position, these variables are called instance variables and static variables. Based on the position means they should be defined inside the class and outside the method or block or constructor. Okay. So this variable is not declared with static keyword. That's why this is instance variable. This variable j is declared with static keyword. That's why j is called static variable. So inside the class, okay, in the state part, we have only two types of variables. They are instance variables and static variables. So what is the difference between these two variables is, for the static variables, memory is allocated only once for the entire class in the method area. That's why static variables are called class variables. The scope of the static variables is for the entire class. But whereas for the scope of the instance variables is only object level. Means, see, understand the difference between static variable and instance variables. The memory is allocated for the instance variables inside each and every object of that class. Here, how many objects I have created for the class A? Okay, class A, I have created 3 objects. So inside each and every object, instance variables are stored. That's why I is equal to 10 is stored inside the first object of the class, second object, third object. That's why the memory is allocated for the instance variables inside each and every object. That's why instance variables are called object level variables. But whereas static variables are called class level variables. Because for the entire class, memory is allocated only once for the static variables. But whereas the memory is allocated for the instance variables inside each and every object of that class. That's why here I is equal to 10, I is equal to 10, I is equal to 10 means inside each and every object of that class, the memory is allocated instance variables. Instance variables are part of the objects. Okay, our instance variables are part of the object. Only instance variables are stored inside each and every object of the class. Static variables are not stored inside each and every object of the class. Static variables are stored only in the method area, that too only once. Okay. Next, one more important point is, even though static variables are not stored inside each and every object, but we can access static variables inside each object. So from this object, I can access both instance variable as well as static variable. So inside this object, I can access both I and j. Similarly, inside this object, I and j. But only difference is here, suppose if you modify the instance variable with this object A, with this reference variable A1, only inside this object the value get changed. Suppose if you modify the value of I by I plus 1, that is 11. So this change is done only inside this object. But if you modify the value of this j, that is static variable, through with one object, but the change is made for the other objects also. If you modify with a1, 10 by I, j by j plus 1, then you will get 11, no? But 11 is, we can access with a2. If you access with a2, j value 11. If you access the j value with a3 also 11. But if you change I value only inside a1, only a1 dot I is 11. But if you access a2 dot I, 10 only. If you access a3 dot I, 10 only. That is the difference between instance variables and static variables. So you can try to understand this program. You can easily understand on your own. Next, static methods. This is very, very important. So inside the main is a static method, no? So static method means the important points I will explain now. So like variables are of two types, no? Instance variables and static variables, no? In this program you can understand the static methods concept more clearly. So class A, here we have, inside the class I can write instance variables, static variables as well as static methods. Please focus on this static method. So inside one class I can write instance variables, any number of instance variables, and any number of static variables, and any number of static methods, and any number of instance methods. If you take any class in Java, these are the only 4 important concepts to remember. What are the 4 important concepts inside any class? Inside any class we have instance variables like this, and static variables like this, and static methods like this, and one more is instant methods like this. Okay, understand the difference between these 4. Okay, what is the purpose of instance variables, and what is the purpose of static variables, and what is the purpose of static methods, and what is the purpose of instance methods. These are very, very important. If you take any Java program, with respect to these 4 concepts only, we will write the Java programs. Okay, so try to understand instance variables, static variables, instance methods, and static methods. So here I can say M2 is called instance method. Why M2 is called instance method is, this method is not declared with static keyword. That's why this M2 method is called instance method, and this area is called instance area. Next, start with here M1 method is declared with static keyword. That's why M1 method is called static method. This area is called static area. Okay, so inside any class in Java, we will write only instance variables, static variables, static methods, instance methods. Static blocks also we can write, constructors also we can write. Okay, leave them. But the important concepts are instance variables, static methods, and instance methods. Try to understand the difference between these four: instance variables, instance methods, static variables, static methods. Already explained static variables concept in depth. Okay, now also I explained one program now with static variables. Now we will discuss static methods. So what is the purpose of static methods? So inside static methods or inside static area, okay, what we can access, what we can't access, if you understand this enough. So how do we understand static method and instance method? Is inside static method what we can access, and inside instance method what we can access. If you understand the difference between these two methods, that is static methods and instance methods, then you can write any number of programs on your own. Otherwise you can't write programs, Java programs on your own. Okay, so try to understand static method. So inside static method what we can access is, inside static method we can't access instance variables or instance methods directly. Compulsory with reference variable only we can access instance variables and instance methods. Again I am repeating the same sentence. See, very important. So inside the static methods, okay, so inside the static methods what we can access, what we can't access. Try to understand. Okay, so inside the static methods we can access static. First I will explain like this. Inside static methods we can access static variables or static methods directly. Okay, so inside the static methods we can access static variables and static methods directly, but inside the static methods we can't access instance variables and instance methods directly. Okay, so this is the first important point to remember with respect to static methods. Again I am repeating. Inside the static methods we can access static variables and static methods directly, but we can't access instance variables and instance methods directly. But here one question is, how to access instance variables and instance methods inside the static methods is using reference variable. So we must access instance variables and instance methods inside the static methods with reference variables only. So directly we can't access. Compulsory we should use reference variables to access instance variables and instance methods inside the static area. This is called static area. Okay, now we will see. So here system.out.println I. Now already explained the concept of static method. Now you can easily understand what we can access, what we cannot access. So system.out.println I, can you access? Because this is static method. M1 is static method. Inside static method we can't access instance variables or instance methods directly. They must be accessed with reference variable only. That's why here I am trying to access I. What is I? First check. I is instance variable, but this method is static method. That's why inside static method I can't access instance variable directly. That's why you will get compiler error. This is syntactically wrong. Next, system.out.println J. Already explained, no? Inside the static method I can access static variables or static methods directly. That's why J is a static variable, so I can access J directly, but I can't access I directly. But next one more already explained. No, this no. So this dot J can you use? See here one more important point is, inside static area we can't use this or super keywords. If you use this or super keywords inside the static methods, you will get compiler error. This is one more important point to remember with respect to static methods. So inside the static methods we can't use this or super keywords. That's why here what I am writing, So system.out.println this dot j. This is wrong because I can't use this keyword. So error. Okay. Next. Here it is giving error. No. When you access the instance variable inside the static area, it is giving error. No. So how to overcome this error? Already explained. No. Instance variables or instance methods can be accessed inside the static area or static method with the reference variable, or means by creating object of that class we can access the instance variable of that class. So here this class name is ENO. So how do I access the instance variable inside the static method is by creating object for that class. So first create a obj is equal to new. So here we are creating object for class A. After that system.out.println obj.i. This is correct. Directly I can't access, but with object I can access. So obj.i means it is correct. In the same way, obj.j also correct. So j is an static variable. So inside the static method, static variable can be accessed either directly or using object or using class name also correct. Already explained static variables concept, same concept. Here include a.j also correct. So inside the same class, there are three ways, no? That's why class directly with object with class name. Okay. So this is the next. One more is, this is also important. What is M2? M2 is static method or instance method? Instance method, no. How do we access instance method inside the static method? Directly can we write M2? No, if you write M2 directly, it is again giving error like this. Okay, because M2 is an instance method. But how do we access instance method inside the static area? Using compulsory object. That's why already I have created object now. So obj.m2 is the invocation of M2 method, that is instance method from the static method. So obj.m2 means from this it will go to the M2 method and this will be executed. So this is about static methods. Try to understand this static method concept. Okay. Otherwise, you can't write programs. Next, this is instance method. Now, what is the difference between static method and instance method is, inside static method, we can access static variables or static methods directly, but we can't access instance variables and instance method directly. But with the object, we can access instance variables and instance method. Okay, that is about static method. Like that, instance method means there are no restrictions on this instance method. Okay, we can access all the static variables or instance variables directly. Okay, so there is no restriction. So here static means, static area means only static direct access. Inside the static area we can access only static variables or static methods directly, but inside non-static means inside the instance methods we can access both static and non-static variables or methods directly. So that is the difference between static method and instance method. So with this, okay, static methods completed. Similarly, I will share the notes. Remaining concepts you can understand on your own. So there are 4 ways to use the static keyword. There are static variables, static methods, static blocks, and static import. When you write import statement, we will write import java.lang. There we can use static keyword. Means when you write when you use static import means only static variables and static method of other package can be imported to your package. Okay, you can programs are there on these 2, that is static blocks and static import. Now I will share these notes in your Google Classroom. Please complete static. Okay, so with this your syllabus is completed. So 2 concepts I have to cover. They are inner classes and java.io. Java.io means already explained 2 classes, buffered reader class and scanner class. Those 2 are enough for java.io, but some more classes are also there in java.io. Today I will share the notes on java.io and also on inner classes. Okay, so with this your syllabus is completed.